left him, but watch how fast you're acting like you didn't, right? You're still living like the version of you that existed when you were with him. Watch how fast you second guess yourself, you change your opinion, you work hard to make other people comfortable. You adjust yourself before people even ask you to. I know. Nobody even asked you to do this, right? You just naturally do it. And none of this came from nowhere, right? This actually came from the version of you that was created in order to survive him. And here's the thing, if you don't actually see the version of you that you've become in this, then you're not actually going to heal. You're going to feel like you're healing, but that's not actually what's happening. You're just repeating the same patterns, but in a different way. And I'm telling you, that version of you that existed in the abusive relationship, that's not what's going to heal you. That woman cannot rebuild your life. Now, before I go any further, my name is Lisa Sonni. I'm a certified relationship coach. I'm an author and speaker. I specifically work with women who are exiting and healing from abusive relationships with men. I expose their tactics and I help women rebuild. So if you're here for the part where your life actually changes, hit subscribe because this is exactly the kind of content that I make. So watch this. Here are some examples. Perhaps you are sending a text message and you write it and then you delete it and then you rewrite it and you really overthink what you're trying to say. You don't want to sound like you're too much, right? So you're not sure what's the perfect message. Maybe somebody disappoints you and you're not really sure how to take that. You don't know how to tell them. So what do you do instead? You swallow it. You pretend that you're not disappointed at all. In fact, you explain to yourself why it's really not a big deal. Maybe you feel something off in your life, right? You've got a little instinct, something doesn't feel right, but instead of actually leaning into that, you override yourself. Your instinct is to question yourself, not question the thing or person that's making you uncomfortable. Maybe you make a decision and then you immediately question, was that the right decision? Should I have done that? But no one's controlling you anymore. So why are you still doing that? Because listen, this isn't about him anymore. He's gone. This is really about what has been wired into you. You've been conditioned. Conditioning does not happen in one fight, not over one day, right? This is years of being in a relationship that conditioned you to tolerate abuse and just make yourself completely invisible. Conditioning happens through repetition. Every time that you spoke up and it caused a crazy argument with your ex and you were invalidated and shut down and dismissed and minimized and gaslit, this is conditioning. Every time that you had a need and had the audacity to express the need and you were shut down, that's conditioning. If you ever tried to hold a boundary and you got yelled at or ignored or in trouble, faced some kind of consequence, you learned not to have boundaries, not to have needs, not to express yourself. This is how in an abusive relationship, you become essentially destroyed. Abusive relationships really create this environment where it feels easier to just give up. This is resignation, right? You're like, forget it. There's no point in even arguing anymore. There's no point in even asking because you are constantly unseen and unheard and invalidated. But another kind of interesting part of conditioning is when things get better because abusive relationships always have good and bad, hot and cold. And whenever an abusive man is being kind to you, and like major air quotes on the word kind, it is part of the system. It's part of the conditioning. You get rewarded when you're compliant. When you do the right thing according to the abuser, something good might happen, right? You get a little bit of relief, a little dopamine hit. Maybe you get flowers or a nice dinner or just an argument-free evening. All of this creates an environment where it's easier for you to just be silent. And now that you're not in the relationship anymore, maybe you're still kind of silent. Nobody has to minimize you. Nobody has to invalidate you. You just do it automatically because that's how conditioning works, right? A lot of this just lives in the nervous system and it's easy to say, well, hey, you're out of the relationship now. It's going to be really easy to not have to feel that way anymore because now you're free. But women who leave these relationships don't automatically feel free. Leaving never solves all your problems. I'm a big advocate for leaving. Don't get me wrong. I am pro leaving abusive men and abusive relationships, but I don't want people to think that you leave and then poof, everything's better because conditioning is really hard to undo. Now, this is where a lot of people just miss the whole point entirely because you look at it and you think this is behavior and behavior can change, which behavior can change, but it doesn't happen automatically when it's actually living in you. The truth is, this is beyond behavior. This is identity. You became a people pleaser. You became someone who keeps the peace. You became someone who caretakes, who is silent at your own expense to make someone else happy. I tell you, when we look at the fact that so many women become peacekeepers, You are keeping his peace at the expense of your own peace. You're the one who adjusts. You're the one who makes it work. You're the one who manages his moods and regulates his feelings. It is the most infuriating experience. So when you get out of it, if you're conditioned to not even consider yourself, you can't just leave and then everything comes back to you and you start considering yourself. So many people forget how to do it because, again, it has become your identity to caretake, to people please, to adjust yourself. Do you realize how many abusive men praise their victims for being the chill girl, the low maintenance girl, right? You don't have any needs. You just stop asking. They condition you into that and then they praise you for not having any needs and you're so low maintenance, but actually you're a human being and all human beings have needs and certainly should be getting their needs met in a relationship. But all this to say, when the relationship ends, you don't just lose him, you lose yourself, you lose your own identity. You lose the role that you were playing. And that actually feels like a huge adjustment for people. So if you're sitting here thinking like, man, things feel so off, I don't feel like myself. And I hear that constantly, right? I feel stuck and overwhelmed and just not myself. You don't know who you are without him. You don't know who you are without that version of yourself to kind of fall back on. It's become your normal. We want to correct that because that's not normal. I want to help you become more you, more yourself, more authentic, more happy. And to be happy, maybe you find a new relationship, but that's not really where the happiness is. Some women leave these relationships and they want to be in another relationship. And some are like, I am never, ever going to date another man the rest of my life. And the truth is, I get it. Either way, I'm not a dating coach, but I am an abuse recovery coach. So a lot of women might think, the goal is never pick another man like that again. Never pick a man who calls you names and makes you feel bad and gaslights and manipulates you and blame shifts and never takes accountability. I get it. You want to avoid that kind of relationship. And this is where a lot of women are trying to avoid red flags and learn more about what toxic men do and abusive men do so you can avoid that guy. You want to learn how to set better boundaries and never pick a man like that. Do you notice how all of these things are external? The focus is actually on what you need to change inside you. That's what you need to do before you're dating again, if you even want to. And as you start to heal, all of the focus needs to be on you. So externally, this is what you're focusing on, but I want you to flip this and actually look internally. What's happening inside? Are you still overgiving, over-explaining, defending yourself, choosing other people over yourself? Are you still adjusting yourself just to be accepted by friends, family, coworkers, whomever? Because what I'm showing you here is that you left him, but the pattern didn't change. You haven't broken the pattern. And that makes sense because the identity underneath it hasn't changed. That's what needs to change. This is where so many people get stuck, right? Because you go online and it's like, you need to heal before you date, heal, spend all your time reading books and watching YouTube videos, heal. But I'm telling you, if all you're doing is comforting and soothing that old version of you, that's not healing. That's not change. Nothing is really going to take. You're not going to feel differently. Healing is different than rebuilding. And what I focus on is rebuilding. I want you to outgrow the woman that he conditioned you to be. Become the woman who doesn't soften anything. Learn assertive communication, not aggressive, right? Assertive. Be the woman who makes decisions. You don't spiral for hours. You don't need to check with your friends. You don't need external validation. You know you can make decisions. Be the woman who feels discomfort and doesn't automatically abandon herself to make other people happy. Think of yourself. Choose yourself. I want you to choose what's good for you based on what's true and based on what you want, not what makes other people happy or comfortable. You are creating a different identity. And none of this is going to happen by accident. This takes intention. And I have faith that people that are really trying to rebuild and change who they were in this relationship, they can absolutely do it. Women are incredible. They are so resilient and strong. This is exactly the work that I do in my group coaching program called Rise and Rebuild. This is a 12-week program that I co-host with Dr. Peter Salerno, and we go through all of the steps. We focus on action, behavioral change, identity shifts, self-worth, confidence over 12 weeks in 75-minute sessions. You don't need to just understand what happened to you. You've got your PhD in narcissistic abuse, right? but I want you to actually change how you think, how you show up, how you live, how you feel. And you do all of this so that you don't feel like you're still living in that relationship anymore. That guy's gone, thankfully, right? Tell me in the comments, what is one thing that you find yourself still doing that is the old version of you, the version that existed in that relationship? What is it that you really want to just shed? What do you want to stop doing? What do you want to start doing? Hit subscribe if you're just done surviving and you actually want to live. You want to be happy. You want to be strong and confident. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.